But we're talking here about the presentation of the British government's position, and what it was saying in this process was most important. And given the criticality of this moment, it's not unreasonable to assume, and indeed you've not said anything to suggest otherwise, that the question of the existing state of Iraq's weapons of mass destruction was the reason why all this was going ahead, and that would have important consequences should, as we hoped, inspectors get back.
Could I raise one point, Mr. Straw, about the immediate reception of the dossier in the public mind? You are, of course, correct, and the Butler Committee on which I sat concluded that it was seen as a dull document and had little impact. There was, however, one very dramatic picture and headline in the Evening Standard on the day of publication. Missiles connected to 45 minutes in the public mind. We've heard from several witnesses, that, including Alistair Campbell, there was no sense in government that this was something that needed correcting. Was that because of a judgment that it was a passing moment in terms of media presentation?
I read Alistair Campbell's evidence. I think what he was saying was that it wasn't open to the press secretary at Number 10 to seek a correction from the Evening Standard. Life wasn't like that. So I don't think it was that because you have to live with exaggeration day by day. I mean, I just say for myself that plainly, that reference should have been much more precise because it only ever referred in the intelligence to battlefield weapons. Certainly in fairness to Alistair Campbell, my understanding was that, however, the final text was signed off by the JIC, and I don't think there was ever any suggestion that Alistair or anybody else had interfered with the intelligence judgments. But as Sir David Amon was indicating yesterday, I mean, that was an error, and it's error which has haunted us ever since, without any question. But say overall, the purpose of it was to set out our analysis of the risk from Iraq.
Thank you. You've mentioned other governments which didn't agree with our policy had a similar view. There was one that didn't, and the exchanges, I think, is important. This was when Prime Minister Baer met Putin in Russia in, I think it was the 12th of October, and Putin said the following: Russia does not have in its possession any trustworthy data that supports the existence of nuclear weapons or any weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and we have not received any such information from our partners as yet. This fact has also been supported by the information sent by the CIA to the US Congress, so there's at least one doubter in that. But what's interesting, I think, is the Prime Minister's response to that. He said there may be a difference of perspective about weapons of mass destruction. There is one certain way to find out, and that is to let the inspectors back to do their job. That is the key point on which we are both agreed. So there was an inference there that this was a matter that could be settled by inspectors.
Well, inference, I mean, my view was that put it at its very lowest, it was the preferred option. My whole aim, Sir Lawrence, throughout this period was to resolve this matter by peaceful means. But if I may just say so, if Mr. Putin was referring to the National Intelligence Estimate, which went before Congress in, I think, October 2002, I mean, that, when I reread it recently, actually made bolder claims than those that were in the 24th of September dossier, not less bold claims.
Oh, absolutely. But that, in a way, you could argue that was also part of the problem, in that now that the United States had agreed that this was the focus for its effort, there was going to be even more pressure to strengthen and I'm not going to use the word sex up, but to strengthen the intelligence to confirm the position that was being taken. And as you know, there have been critiques of the National Intelligence Estimate that suggest that's exactly what did happen.
allow me to make this point, if I may. Two things. One is that a report which had influenced me was neither the NIE, on which there was a bit of a health warning even at the time it was issued, nor the dossier, in which there was no health warning, and the people of the highest integrity and professionalism, like John Scarlett and David Omont and many others, and William Ehrman, had been involved. But there was the document with which we had absolutely nothing to do, published by the IISS on, I think, the 9th of September. This was in advance of President Bush's speech and in advance of our dossier. And what the IISS was saying, well, is, look, each year we publish the military balance. We are the most authoritative independent body in the world for assessing these things. Our considered judgment is, and then they spelled it out, in actually slightly more severe terms than we did a couple of weeks later. But the other point, if I may, that I'd make is this. If you read my speeches of all kinds, what I was seeking to do was to make the case from that which no one could challenge. In other words, from what was on the public record. Yes, it was true that an important component, in addition to that, was what we said the intelligence suggested. But what I've took people back to was the Gulf War, the inspectors going in after that, their extreme difficulty in operating there, things like Iraq's denial of an active biological weapons program for 4 years, only revealed when Saddam Hussein's son-in-law defected, and then the removal of the inspectors, and what was then left unanswered, and then said to people, now look, they were cleared out. The intelligence suggests that not only is it still there, but it's going on. But in any event, do we not need to do something about this, given what we know about the behaviour of this regime? And I thought that was a much more powerful case than saying, oh, we found this piece of secret information. As I say in my document, I mean, intelligence is, you can call it patchy and sporadic by its nature. And I think part of the thing we didn't realise at the time we're doing is this, that in the public's mind, intelligence is seen in a different way. I mean, because it is secret and it's held tightly, people think there's a kind of moment when the private secretary rushes in and says, do you know about this? And it's absolute, here it is on tablets of stone. Well, as all of you know who've had to handle these in different ways, it's not like that at all. It's little bits of information. However, all the little bits of information, however patchy and sporadic, all pointed in one direction, and not one I ever saw pointed in the opposite direction.